Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the General Insurance Corporation of India Q2 FY22 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen only mode and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Binay Sarda from Christensen IR. Thank you and over to you, sir.
Thanks, Janice. Good afternoon to all the participants on the call, and thanks for joining this Q2 FY22 earnings call for General Insurance Corporation of India. Please note that we have mailed out the press release to everyone, and you can also see the results on our website as well as it has been uploaded on the stock exchange. In case if you have not received the same, you can write to us and we will be happy to send it over to you. Before we proceed with the call, let me remind you that the discussion may contain forward-looking statements that may involve known or unknown risks, uncertainties, and other factors. It must be viewed in conjunction with our businesses that could cause future result, performance, or achievement to differ significantly from what is expressed or implied by such forward-looking statements. To take us through the results of this quarter and answer our questions, we have with us the management of GIC represented by Mr. Devesh Srivastava, Chairman and Managing Director, and other top members of the management. We'll be starting the call with a brief overview of the quarter gone past, which will then be followed with a Q&A session. With that said, I'll now hand over the call to Mr. Devesh Srivastava. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Binayji. Good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to announce the financial performance for the quarter ended September 30th, 2021. We would like to assure you that we are continuously taking all necessary measures to improve our overall profitability. The combined ratio continues to remain at an uncomfortable range, and it has been a constant endeavor to bring down our combined ratio below 100. Let me now take you through some of the key highlights of the financial performance. The gross premium income of the company was rupees 8,374 crores for Q2 FY22 as compared to rupees 10,651 crores for Q2 FY21. The investment income stood at rupees 2,669 crores in Q2 FY22 as compared to rupees 2,767 crores in Q2 FY21. Incurred claims ratio declined to 92% in Q2 FY22 as compared to 101% in Q2 FY21 due to a prudent approach. Combined ratio in Q2 FY22 remained flat at 122.2% versus 122.1% for Q2 FY21. The adjusted combined ratio, by taking into consideration the policyholder's investment income, works out to 104.4% for H1 FY22 as compared to 102.89% in H1 FY21. The company recorded profit before tax of rupees 1,213.75 crores in Q2 FY22 as against rupees 412.28 crores in Q2 FY21 and profit after tax of rupees 1,010.55 crores in Q2 FY22 as against 230.05 crores in Q2 FY21. Solvency ratio increased to 1.88 as on 30/9/2021 as compared to 1.63 on 30/9/2020. Net worth of the company without fair value change account increased to rupees 22,691 crores as on 30/9/2021 as against rupees 20,123 crores as on 30/9/2020. Net worth of the company including fair value change account increased to rupees 55,088 crores as on 30/9/2021 as against rupees 39,628 crores as on 30/9/2020. On the premium breakup, domestic premium for H1 FY22 is rupees 15,616 crores and the international is rupees 7,048 crores. The percentage split is domestic 69% and international 31%. So there is a degrowth in the domestic premium by around 12%, while the international book has decreased by 19%. We are seeing a gradual improvement in the external environment and remain confident of improved performance going forward, as we expect the combined ratio to start moving downwards in the coming quarters. Having given the highlights, now we will open the floor for questions from the interested parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. A reminder to the participants, if you have a question, please press star then one on your touchtone telephone. We take the first question from the line of Sanket Godha from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. So the basic question which I have is that in agri GWP in the current quarter is a negative number. So just wanted to understand why there is a de-recognition of gross premium number with respect to crop in second quarter. And along with that, the another question with respect to GWP growth is that the health portfolio has seen a significant decline, and so is the fire segment. So just wondering whether it is domestic market or overseas market led to the decline in these two line items. So that is my first question. And the second question is just trying to understand why the commission ratio is almost 30% in the current quarter, which usually doesn't happen to us. So just wondering why it led to such a high increase in the commission ratio to 30%.
Sanket, as you have been following GIC quite for quite a long while, you would have seen that our entire endeavor was to get the agri portfolio back on track because it was getting out of hand. We had too much exposures in agri, and that was also biting us. Now, when we pruned our portfolio last year, there was a substantial amount of premium that we let go, which was not making sense to us. This year, what has happened is that because of the cutting down on the premiums last year, a fallout has happened, and that is the premium decrease you see. Of course, I'll request Mr. Hitesh Joshi, our General Manager looking at agri, to answer that. He can also pick up the health question because health is also his beat.
Sir, I understand it's a decline, but my question is why it is a negative number in the second quarter. So it is minus 328 crores in the second quarter. So just failing to understand why it is a negative number in premium.
Yes, Sanket. See, what happens at the beginning of the year in terms of, say, agri, first quarter bookings are essentially based on estimates, based on the treaties that are incepting on 1st April. So whatever are the premium projections of the companies for the Kharif season, we try to apportion that in our premium recognition. As we enter the second quarter, we get to know the exact ground level registrations of the farmer. And we come to know whether the business projections made by the various cedents under various treaties, whether they are achieved or not. So when we got this data from the cedents, there was an underachievement. So we are correcting. Actually, you are supposed to look the 2 quarters collectively. Because first quarter is an estimate and we don't know what is the exact figure. That clarity, visibility comes only in the second quarter. That is why there is a degrowth.
Got it. So even if I look YTD, the crop has declined 17%. That is for half to half comparison. So do you expect a similar, even including Rabi, the decline will be of similar amount, around 15 to 20%?
Yes, I would say so. As long as there is a intercompany, intercedent balance parity in their market share. It may not be exactly like that, but broadly it can be expected to remain same.
Have you lost market share in agri, sir?
Sorry?
Have we lost market share to overseas or foreign reinsurers?
No, whatever we have cut down on April, see, the domestic business is frozen at 1st April renewal. So then there is no further increase or decrease. That almost decides our market share, barring the ground level higher or lower registration of the farmers. Does it help, Sanket? Am I clear?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you are clear, sir. Now you can, it will be great if you can explain it on the health part also, health and fire part.
Yeah, in the health actually, I think it was probably explained in the first quarter also that whatever was this stipulation by the IRDAI in regard to the discontinuation of the capital gearing treaties or fixed margin treaties. That is, there was a major treaty which was not renewed and it will continue to impact us for the next 2 quarters as well. Essentially, we did not renew a major contract on April 21 as vis-a-vis what was written at April 20. So it will have that lingering effect on all the 4 quarters, and that contract had a size of about 25% plus of our entire health portfolio.
So should I assume it is Star Health, sir? Because they discontinued the insurance treaty. So should I assume it is Star Health?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And on fire, sir?
One second.
What is the question on fire? Sanket, can you repeat the question on fire, please?
So even in case of fire, sir, in the quarter, or even if I look at it on YTD basis, in the quarter it is a 32% decline, and it is a 16 or 17% decline in first half in the fire segment in GWP, where we have seen reinsurance rate hardening, domestic prices also moved up, economic activity is improving. So we assume the fire will do well for the industry as a whole, and you will also benefit out of it. But for us, it is declining. So just wondering, the decline largely came from the overseas business because of our rating downgrade, or it is largely driven by domestic business?
See, there is a slight fall is happening in the domestic market is also because some of the products introduced by IRDA are coming out of the IIB rates. There are some of them are being priced differently and as per the regulator permission. So that's one reason. As regards the foreign, it's a bit regarding the consolidation of books, where we have come out of some of the loss-making accounts, and you can see that has resulted in better solvency and improvement in the results.
Sir, can you touch upon on that part, IIB rates thing? Which are exactly these products? Whether these are large?
As the performance-based rating for the property risks, it is based on the statistics released by the IIB. But there are 3 products which were introduced by IRDA for the Laghu and Shishma, the MSME segment.
Okay.
So that was basically government driven, where to give benefit to this MSME segment. The rates are more, you can say, more lenient and more favorable for encouraging business. So that can have a little bit of effect on the pricing over here.
Okay, so those products will be what percentage of our total fire, ma'am?
Sir, it will be very difficult to say, because when we do treaties, we won't get this breakup.
Okay, fair enough. And finally, on the commission ratio, why the commission ratio was so high in the current quarter, which is almost like 29%. So just wondering what led to that increase in the commission ratio in the current quarter.
Sanket, talking about fire, or talking about the overall?
Yeah, overall commission ratio, which I calculate as the commission number mentioned in the result, which is around 2161 crores, divided by NWP number of 7450 crores, the commission ratio comes to closer to 29%. So last quarter it was 18.6, and to the extent I know, I never seen such kind of a high commission ratio in GIC Re for any quarter. So just wondering why the commission ratio has gone up, because that is the single reason why the combined ratio came at 122% despite loss ratio improving significantly.
Right. Sanket, if you see the results, the commissions have only moved from 19 to 21%. Up to the half year.
Yeah, but for the second quarter, I'm saying, sir, only for the second quarter.
Right. So I'll request our CFO, Mrs. Jayashree Ranade, to explain this.
Hello. Good afternoon, Sanket ji. There are certain adjustments in our fixed margin treaties regarding commission for the old years, which are finally closed in this year, and that's why those adjustments have given us increase in motor class, and those amounts are substantial, and that is why the impact is seen only in the second quarter. So these adjustments in fixed margin treaties, commission adjustments in motor class in particular, have given us this increase in the commission.
Okay, and nothing to do with health contracts, no ma'am, then?
Health contracts are not very usually impacted.
But entire pain with respect to the fixed income contracts are done in second quarter, or we can expect the same thing to flow through Q3 and Q4 also?
I do not see so, because we have closed these fixed margin contracts, and hence the adjustments arose in the second quarter. So in the
Okay. Oh, okay, ma'am. These are my initial questions. If I have any, I will come back in the queue. Thank you.
So hello. Sanket ji?
May come back.
Yeah, ma'am. Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, Sanket.
Even motor foreign, there seems,
Motor foreign, there is a significant growth, and that business is having a different cost structure and distribution aspect to it. So there is a higher cost attached to it.
Got it.
So that is what is contributing, and it will at least contribute for the next, till the end of the year.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kailash Baheti from Kalpataru. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. So my first question is what is the difference between market value and book value of quoted debt instruments, if you have that number handy, as on 30th September?
So debt instruments, we do not record at market value in our books of accounts. These are all held to maturity and recorded at cost. We record our equity and mutual funds at market value, and we book it at the fair value in our balance sheet. So that value has increased to 45,085 crores as on 30th of September 2021. Book value of 12,694. Book value of equity is 12,694 crores, and market value is 45,085 crores.
Yeah, ma'am, I understand that. That number is, I think, even otherwise available. Generally, the insurance companies would have a very large debt portfolio, and it is not uncommon that to give, confidence to the stakeholders, the number of unrealized gain on debt is also disclosed at least to the investors or in investor presentation. I understand GIC does not follow that, but I just wanted to check if that number is handy, and would you like to share it?
Kailash, the figure you asked for, to give you an exact number would be difficult. We can, however, try to give you something, in the vicinity of that. We give an approximate number. Would that do?
Yes.
Yeah. Kailash, it is in the range of 3,500 crores, in addition to our book value. So roughly our debt instrument portfolio is 53,016 crores. In addition to that, fair value is around 56,500 crores.
So 53,000 crore is book value, and 56.5 roughly would be market value.
It cannot be exact, but it is around that figure.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. You have also mentioned about benchmarking with global peers, etc. So who would you generally benchmark yourself with in global peers?
Kailash, you see, we are already ranked 13 in the world. That means essentially there are 12 reinsurers who are larger than us. when you benchmark yourself, you would obviously benchmark yourself in the top 5, top 7 players in the world, because if you see the figures, the top 20, 25 reinsurers, amongst them have about 85% of the global reinsurance premium.
Yeah, I understand. So if I ask a follow-on question, what would be the average solvency of these top 12, 13 or 15 or whatever number you benchmark against? What would be their average solvency, if you have an idea?
Kailash, you see, a solvency is something that reinsurers tend to, have, because, see, in the Western market, for example, the solvency required is 1. You should have assets and liabilities matched. So minimum solvency 1 is what is required. In the Indian context, the regulator here states 1.5 as the minimum solvency. Now, be that as it may, generally reinsurers would tend to have a solvency closer to 2, 1.75, 2, and in the thereabouts, because a very high solvency also means that you're not using your capital efficiently.
Yeah, I understand. And, if you would look at, and if you were to book your profits on investment income, then your solvency will probably become 3, 3.5, 4, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are to look at your performance, then you should be looking at the performance of your total net worth, and not, the net worth which is net of the equity. That's my understanding. And what is your view on that?
So, Kailash, you're absolutely right. The moment we get the fair value into account and in tune with the global practices where you do take the market value of your investments into consideration, our solvency jumps. Definitely it jumps. But then here the law of the land states that you will calculate and compute your solvency based on the book value of your investments. Now, since we have a very good book which is built over almost 5 decades, obviously you can imagine the fair value is considerable. But that is a notional thing for us as far as the regulator is concerned.
And what stops us from converting, if I may ask, and especially in the context, if I read the AM Best rating rationale,
Mm-hmm.
these guys are saying that, your earlier business model was significant amount of investment income, and in view of the crash in the share market, the income from investment is uncertain, etc., etc. Of course, they have been proven completely wrong. But if you were to, convert a part of your income into unrealized gain into income, will that not help you significantly in your ratings?
See, Kailash, if you see, you're talking about the AM Best report, which obviously was based on our book value, the market value at 31st March last year. Now, last year when COVID started creeping in and India went into a lockdown, I think around the 22nd or 23rd of March last year when the Prime Minister announced it, it was not only India that was affected by it, it was a global downturn, and every market worth its salt was down and out. So were we. But the point that you are trying to raise is that why don't we sell our, sell our equity to get that fair value out into our operations. The point being, would you do that and sell your family silver? We do sell and buy, definitely we do that, but only when we see good opportunities. What is the need for us to go into distress selling? There is absolutely none. Our balance sheet is as strong as ever and will continue to be so. We know that our solvency is always there, which we can in cash, but there is no need for us to do it. When we see an opportunity, we buy. When we see an opportunity, we sell. And that is what is going to be our strategy even going forward. There is absolutely no need for us to get into any selling just for the sake of selling.
I think I am not saying selling just for the sake of selling. My point was that, as much as I understand of the insurance business, and my understanding would not be that great, but still, when you are into competitive business overseas, and if you are competing with reinsurers who are higher rated than you, then you obviously end up getting a business which is maybe have higher loss potential or lesser earning potential, etc., etc. And therefore, ultimately, the family silver which should be yielding results is not yielding results. That's the point I am trying to make. And the business of insurance is to earn money for the stakeholders or shareholders. It is not just keep the family silver hidden. And there has been destruction of shareholders' wealth, as you would kindly appreciate.
Sir, reacting to your point regarding encashment of fair value in order to get a boosting in our rating, the rating agencies do fully factor in the unrealized value of the equity and debt portfolio or whatever. So the encashment is immaterial from the point of view of rating agency. Even if we encash our entire unrealized fair value, it will not impact rating. Rating also looks at essentially 2-3 factors apart from the balance sheet strength. It also looks at the operating model, the profitability, the competitive dynamics and competitive strengths of a company, and risk management of the company, and there are further sub-branches and subtopics which go into rating. So if it were this simple for us to realize the fair value change and get our rating back, we would have certainly done it quite some time back. As I told you, fair value is fully recognized in whatever rating they have given to us, but it is the operating performance. And let me tell you that the investment income, which is a peculiar thing in the emerging market context, which on a book value basis in double digit for us, is not a very common phenomena in the world, and AM-based rating model doesn't give full credit for that. Whichever countries are able to achieve underwriting profitability, they have not substantial investment income to cross-subsidize, which is not the case with India. So there is a bit of peculiarity and odd man out kind of for the Indian economy and Indian insurance sector, which rating agency model doesn't fully factor in.
Rating agencies and India has been, at loggerheads for a very long time, and even for the country there is a problem with Moody's and Standard & Poor's, etc. But I am specifically quoting from the rating rationale of AM Best, where they are saying that the investment income is uncertain because of, the fall in share market, etc. And when I look at the financials of the company or strength of the company when we used to be A minus, to today, I think that we are better on almost every aspect. So why are we not able to argue this out with the rating agency that you guys are stupid, and if they are hearing, I am very happy they should hear, and that our rating should be A minus or even higher and not, where they have kept us.
Sir, as I mentioned, it is not only balance sheet strength, which is, there are various parameters, and one of the important parameters which they consider is also the country credit rating. So it usually acts as a ceiling. Now suppose if we go to another rating agency, almost any other rating agency, that tends to be the ceiling. So it is a multivariable situation. It is not merely balance sheet strength or encashment of fair value change or solvency, or that is what is going to determine the rating.
Do you mean to say that our rating was downgraded because of India rating?
No. There were two aspects. There was a more than 30% drop in our fair value change, which resulted into their consideration of our balance strength at a couple of notches down as compared to what it was before the COVID, together with the overall loss for the corporation for the year 2021. No.
Exactly. That's the point I am trying to make. That's the exact point I am trying to make, that you are now at a very, very significantly higher level of fair value again, which you never was.
Okay, sir, I'll come to that, sir. The point is that rating agencies are supposed to be forward-looking. They try to chart your path, and they should be fairly convinced about your trajectory for the next 6 quarters. Before a better trend, you are probably seeing the offshoots of improvement, but they would like to wait longer so that they are assured of the trend, and then there is no reversal. So they tend to react with a particular lag in terms of assuring themselves that there is a real trend towards improvement, though there are offshoots, but they would wait longer.
understand. One or two other questions, small questions. One is that have we circulated any investor presentation before this call?
It is uploaded on the website. I think that is what we usually do by our rating agencies.
Yes, the investor presentation is always there. I mean, it's always...
We will share with you separately if we, there is no issue on that.
No, but I have been trying to get it from the Bombay Stock Exchange website, and as much as I understand of the legal nuances, you cannot circulate anything prior to sending it to the stock exchanges, and it's not appearing on the stock exchange, and stock exchange takes just about 0.06 or 0.08 seconds to upload what you would have sent to them. So certainly you would not have sent to them, otherwise it would have been appearing. And even on our website, I find our website to be, very, very investor unfriendly. And I have put this in writing to you earlier also. It is extremely difficult to find it. Usually everything would be under the investors, and I do not find this under investors before. And I have been trying to, find it. How Sanket has got it is a mystery to me.
Sir, I cannot agree more. We are redesigning our website. Maybe in next call you will see something different. You will straight land on the investor page. Okay.
Yeah, it's not there on the investor page. And
we are redesigning, sir. We are redesigning our website.
And therefore, you are probably giving advantage to the analyst community over shareholders, which is, I can tell you, if I put a complaint to stock exchange, you will have a problem. So kindly put our whole house in order. I obviously, being a shareholder, do not want any problem for the company. But this is the minimum, and I have been saying that this is not the first time I've said this. I've said this in many of my mails to you.
Sure, sir, we will look into it.
Kindly ensure that the information goes to shareholders first and then the analysts. And the stock exchange first. That's the rule. That's the SEBI rule. You cannot violate it.
We will look into it and will rectify. Thank you for your guidance and inputs.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Madhukar Ladha from Elara Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to understand, on the motor side also we've seen a decline year over year in this quarter, and on fire as well we're seeing a decline. How much of it is with respect to the international geographies, which we were any which ways exiting some of the onerous contracts, and how much of it is domestic? So can you split it between domestic growth and international?
Madhukar, as far as the fire portfolio is concerned, the domestic has almost been steady. There is not much of a change over the previous year.
So year over year is flat. So all of the decline is coming from international.
Yes, indeed. The decline in the fire portfolio is from the international book.
Right. And motor?
On the motor, there is a growth. In fact, there's almost a 10% growth over 30th September last year.
Yeah, but that is looking at the first half number. If I look at the second quarter number, then we are seeing a decline of about 8.5% year over year and 2.6% QOQ. And I'm talking about net written premium basis.
I think there is what is happening is the effect of this capital gearing treaties which we discontinued. So it is getting offset by what is happening on the motor side in terms of the commercial vehicle demand. So there are two trends. One is this, and then if the degrowth is more significant, then I think it is getting reflected in the figures. So I think in first quarter this degrowth of the motor segment was not so very significant, but it is becoming more significant in the second quarter.
The first quarter last year was quite bad, so there was almost a 50% year-over-year growth if you look at it on a last year basis, plus almost a 10-12% odd QOQ growth again in motor last quarter. But this quarter we are seeing a substantial decline. Okay, may also be because of the base effect of last year,
Yes.
partly.
Yes, I think we can agree to that there is a base effect.
There's a little bit of base effect probably, but maybe you can split it between international and domestic.
Yes.
Mr. Ladha, does that answer your question?
Is the split available between international and domestic?
Madhukar, I can give it to you for the half year. If you're looking at it on a quarter by quarter, you'll have to dig it out.
Okay, I'll take the half year number and then maybe I can get the quarter number later.
Okay, so the motor from 30th September last year to this year has moved for the foreign one now from 1186 crores to 2178 crores. And for the domestic book, it has moved from 2671 to 2170.
And that you're saying is because of the capital gearing treaties exiting even on the motor side, in the domestic side.
Yes.
And the international one is where you're paying the higher commissions.
Yes.
So, okay, my final question is on this commission rate of 28% that we've seen in this quarter. Now, what should be sort of the steady state commission ratio after taking into account some of the commission adjustments, plus now you have the new motor treaty where you're paying slightly higher commission rates, and also because you had some reversals in agri. My guess is that some bit of it is also your net written premium has also come down because of that, because of the agri reversal, right?
Agri reversal?
Yeah, that we explained, no, sir. From the first quarter to second quarter, there has been a reversal because of the estimated.
Right. Okay. So, Madhukar, what exactly was your question?
So, what would be sort of your commission ratio if we were to exclude these impacts? Or, going forward, what can we expect?
I think this question is fairly, it is variable. The range is very wide because it is a function of the composition of the portfolio in terms of proportional and non-proportional. So because proportional has commission, non-proportional has no commission, and what you see is the aggregated figure. That is number one. Number two, we can have a upfront and fixed commission for a given class, given contract. Then it can likely to remain steady. As we try to incentivize the cedant to improve the performance and substitute fixed commission with a sliding scale or what we call variable commission, depending on the profitability and incurred claim percentages, it can fluctuate quite a bit. So there is no clear answer as to say, okay, say motor, let us say foreign is maybe 23% is the right commission level. Commission level is negotiated on each contract every year based on the on a rolling basis, based on the trend and the trends in ICR, incurred claim ratio. So, and then this will vary across classes, across geographies, for a given cedant, for the market. Say, for example, if we are looking at Greece motor, then Greece motor insurance industry has a peculiar profile. So that will throw up some common commission percentage. And then that has to be tweaked for the client experience, client contract structure, and whether the profitability is assured or whether it is by of a sliding commission. So I think we are sorry, I don't think we can give you a very clear even range for that matter, because it will vary from class to class, contract to contract, geography, whether it is fixed or variable.
All right, okay. Maybe when I meet you offline, I can have a better discussion to understand this a little better. Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Avinash Singh from Emkay Global. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Hi. Two questions. The first one is on life. Of course, in your overall scheme of things, you are more of a general insurance player than life. But life is smaller segment. But majority of your life book is domestic India. And if we see this year, it has sort of caused significant damage, of course, in this COVID backdrop. So, I mean, what sort of a retrocession you had utilized there, and what sort of a corrective steps you have taken, or you have directed your, the insurers in terms of the repricing your newer contracts, and also what sort of price increases you have seen, and what sort of the competition you see in the domestic life insurance market. That's number one. Second is more not to do with quarter or half, again, sort of repetitive in nature. If we were to look at, the value creation, if I just go back pre-IPO, look at the FY17 numbers, it was like, net worth X fair value gains somewhere close to 18,000 odd crores and a 29 odd thousand crores of fair value gains. Even today, it's like net worth is 22 odd thousand crore and fair value gain 33 odd thousand crore. So, and in the meantime, because your fair value gains is largely from equities, equity market in these 4 years would have close to doubled. So in this backdrop, it's very clear that over the 4 year, whatever sort of a dividend you would have paid, it's been paid more or less from that, the fair value gains that have been realized. And overall, for more than 4 years in net, the operating or, the underwriting has continued to do sort of a negative contribution. Now, how in this sort of a, environment, 4 years, 4.5 years, it's a pretty long time. So how do we see that road ahead? I mean, how are we going to see that? I'm not saying a 20% ROE or but a profitable growth, because this growth is definitely not profitable. Even if you look at 4.5 years, almost no value creation in terms of underwriting. So these are my two questions. Thank you.
Sure, Avinash. For our life bit, I'll request our general manager and our appointed actuary for life, Mr. Vikas and Girija ma'am, to take on the life question first.
For the life department, it actually contributes only 3% to our entire GWP, and the claim ratios this high because of COVID this year. We've had unusually, very bad claims ratio because of COVID deaths, and that is even now being reported for the COVID second wave. Even now we are getting the COVID claims. As far as the retrocession part is concerned, we do not have any specific retrocession in place because we write only to our appetite. But we have an earlier agreement with Hannover where we had we had shared business with Hannover. That was for an older period. We don't have any current retrocession protection in place for Life Re, and we don't intend to have also going forward.
Ma'am, on that front, isn't it, again, I understand that your strength of balance sheet, but isn't it a too risky strategy? Because, of course, COVID has damaged across the globe, but largely, saying that, okay, largely, I'm saying your part of portfolio on the life side is mostly India-centered, so that you have very high geographic concentration. You don't have a geographic diversification like many of the other global issues have. In that context, if you are not opting for retrocession, isn't it like, okay, you are putting yourself at a risk in like 1 in 10 years or so?
Will you take this?
So right now, as ma'am has pointed out correctly, there is no retrocession arrangement, but yes, there is an older agreement with Hannover Re, where the Life Re does have a reinsurance outward as well as reinsurance inward arrangement. Retrocession can be looked at in the future. Right now, would be a bit difficult to find out the correct price and enter into a retrocession arrangement with reinsurers in the event of such adverse experience that we have faced. What was the other question, sorry?
Yes, related to this, so what steps have you taken with your domestic, life insurers? Have you sort of increased your reinsurance prices for the new treaties, or what sort of, market development you are seeing?
Yeah. So wherever action can be taken, we are taking actions. For example, wherever GIC still has an agreement where new business has been written, rates are being modified on a treaty to treaty basis to take care of the adverse experience. Unfortunately, for treaties where GIC no longer writes new business, unfortunately, we have to wait out this period of volatility because the rates for life insurance contracts are guaranteed for the longer term. This is applicable to individual products. On the group side, where we write mostly one-year business, when the groups come up for renewal or we receive new quotations under group facultative or group obligatory schemes, the rates right now are currently at quite a high multiple to what GIC was quoting earlier. So there are steps being taken on the rate side to ensure that the rates do increase. However, the rates definitely would not increase to the extent of the losses that we have seen in COVID, because once it wears off, the actual impact of COVID, or in other words, the impact of COVID on the life expectancy of the Indian population can be found out. Right now it is slightly volatile to make an exact and accurate prediction on how the future is going to be.
Okay. And just quickly on this only. So if I say that, okay, you would have many treaties for individual protection business with the life insurers. Broadly, your experience has been uniform for COVID across the treaties, or has it been like, without naming, has the experience been sort of very divergent in different treaties as far as COVID is concerned?
Not necessarily. The experience has been mostly uniform. Unfortunately, what we can call as COVID deaths would be the death claims reported by cedents where the explicit cause of death is COVID. However, what we have observed, there are many claims which have been reported with multiple causes of death, such as respiratory problem and etc., which might be COVID. So that has probably comorbidities associated with COVID, but the cause of death is not is recorded as COVID.
Okay. So yes. So overall death experience. Let's put all the deaths together over this last H1. So the death experience been uniform across treaties, or like a wide divergence you have seen? I mean, just want to understand that. Okay, if at all.
Across cedents and across treaties, in whether it is individual or group, the experience has been adverse. It would be difficult to pinpoint a particular treaty where we have observed that the experience has been quite good.
Okay.
The experience has mostly been uniform. Obviously, there is a range, but the range is not that material for us to call a particular treaty to be a treaty to be performing as per our expectations.
Got it. Okay, sir. So now, the second question on that, okay, what's the road ahead? Because last 4.5 years, almost sort of no profitability, or rather negative profitability. Whatever profit has come because of the gain booking. So what's the road ahead?
See, Abhinashji, it is a fact that because of the investment income that the Indian market generates, most companies have been operating at a combined ratio of more than 100, which means it is their investment income that is subsidizing their operations. Now, post-listing, and in every investor call that we have had, the investors have very clearly requested and asked GIC to work towards a model where you start earning money from your operations. Exactly what your point also is, that as a sustainable model, that is the way forward. So as we said in our opening remarks as well, we are working towards it. Loads of steps have been taken for our underwriting so that our underwriting becomes profitable, and the investment income that we have is only the icing on the cake thereafter. So we are taking steps on it. We have made good progress. We have tried to, especially the domestic market where we are a very dominant player, we have tried to bring in a lot of measures to ensure that the treaties that we write turn profitable. Those efforts are ongoing. They are unrelenting. And we have set for ourselves a certain target by which time we have to get a combined close to 100 and then below 100. So that is something that is on already.
Okay, sir. And in the backdrop, I mean, considering that, okay, like crop has been sort of it has come as a big sort of a growth, but at the same time, a pressure on profitability. So I mean, do you foresee, I mean, that okay, you would be completely spared from sort of indirect or direct, certain instructions or program of the government? Because I mean, not really Ayushman Bharat, because that has been relatively smaller, but particularly like the crop insurance, it has been a challenge for you. I mean, it has given you top line growth, but profitability front it has put pressure over the many years. So in that context, I mean, do you see realistically that okay, you will be completely spared from these government interventions?
Avinash ji, if you look at Ayushman Bharat that you spoke about, we have been very, very selective in whatever we have written.
Yes, sir. That's very small. That's very small. Like, that's what I said. But I said like crop. Crop has been a big, underwriting profit I would say, drag over the last 3-4 years.
Yes. So in crop insurance, we have, as I said, we have taken a lot of measures to streamline the portfolio and make it profitable. Crop insurance is a prime example. A portfolio that was very large, had a huge exposure on our books, was hurting us, and we have taken all the measures we could, and today when you look at it, the crop insurance has a combined almost close to 100 in our half-yearly closing. This is all a result of whatever we have done to prune the portfolio. We have shed bad premium, and now even within that, when we see that there are certain areas which are bad, which can lead to losses, like states like Tamil Nadu, which have been giving us losses year on year, we try to avoid that, and we have successfully avoided it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, if you wish to ask a question, please press star then 1. The next question is from the line of Sanket Godha from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Just 2 follow-up questions. One means the combined ratio or loss ratio, what we have reported around 92% in the current quarter. How much was it impacted by the cat events across the domestic and overseas market, and likely impact of Chennai floods in second half numbers? So that is my first question. And the second question is that is it fair to assume that incrementally entire motor piece and health piece in domestic market will be only obligatory business, because given the capital gearing treaty is now completely discontinued?
Sanket ji, for the first part, I'll request our non-life actuary to answer. Chennai flood, sir. And Sanket ji, you said the Chennai, and what else? What other thing did you say?
No. I just wanted to check out of that 92% loss ratio, what you reported in the second quarter, how much was due to, or what is the contribution done was from the cat events, both domestic and overseas?
Yeah, domestic property portfolio has been good, but only on foreign sides we had to actually keep some reserve for certain international events. So that is the Hurricane Ida, the Hainan floods from China, and the European floods. So that is the reason that foreign portfolio we are seeing a higher incurred loss ratio. But we hope that, because this is a quarter where you have not the premiums have not come in, and you have actually kept a higher provision. So by December this loss ratio should actually come down. But this is basically for the fire, the property foreign portfolio, and domestic portfolio has been good. It has performed well, in similar lines with Q1.
Okay, and likely impact of Chennai floods, too early to say, but if you can give a fair idea what means, because now our retro XL starts at 500 crores. So just wondering, we can expect a similar kind of a number to hit our PNL, or it will be lower than 500 crores?
Sir, it's too early to say what will be the impact of Chennai floods, because we are the information has not yet started trickling in.
Sir, to the previous question, previous response, that IRA floods, US China floods, and European floods put together, combined, what is the net impact on the profitability for first half or for second half quarter, sir?
We have kept to the tune of about 100 million, that is 760 odd crores, as a reserve for these cat events, international cat events.
And how confident you are that this will be sufficient, or you need to provide more, or there is a likely release, sir?
The confidence comes from the fact that we have been reviewing these events that are happening. So we have we actually reserve for them separately. It's most likely that it will not exceed this the numbers, the reserves that we have kept. So it's likely that going forward, if the reporting is not happening to that extent, we will be releasing this. So we have about in the last 4 years, whatever the international cat events have occurred, we have about 20-25 numbers which we track. So we actually also look at the territory where that has happened and what is our exposure in that territory. So there are multiple factors that we look into. So we are quite confident that this reserve should be sufficient to actually take care of the claims that may flow in.
And this entire 760 was provided in Q2 only, right, sir? Or it is 1H number?
No, this is an extra reserve that has come in Q2 this quarter.
Okay. And the other question which I asked regarding how to model the incremental motor and health business in the domestic market. Should we limit ourselves to the obligatory part, given the capital gearing treaties are getting discontinued, and clearly they will get zero incrementally. So we should assume that 5% of the obligatory will be the only line item which will driving the motor and health domestic business.
Yes, that will be correct. By and large, since these are classes which are not RI driven, there may not be separate outside of obligatory requirement from the cedents. So it will be predominantly obligatory. Just going back a little, you mentioned about retro attachment point being 500 crore. Now it is increased to 1250 crore for Indian business.
Okay. So till 1250 crores, we will take the hit on our books, and beyond that only it will go to the retro guys, right, sir?
Yes.
So in 3 years period, we increased from 250 to 500, 500 to 1250, right, sir? I remember this number was couple of years back 250 crores. Now it is last year it was 500 crores. Now you are saying it is 1250 crores. So our skin in the game, or our potential loss if there are big cat events in the domestic market will be as high as 250 odd crores.
Yes.
So any rationale, sir, for doing so? Because that seems to be a little aggressive strategy.
No, it looks aggressive because the base is moving like that, but it also depends on the cost that the premium that the market is charging for this cover. Because it is too primary, what we in our parlance we call it is likely to get hit easily. Entire purchase that we have in place. So it is a cost benefit analysis that we carried out internally and decided to retain it.
How much premium saving you have done because you moved from 500 to 1250?
Something like 45% of that premium.
Absolute rupees crores, sir, if you can mention.
By 750. So it will be something like 400 crore premium saving on the outgo.
Okay, 400 crores.
350, 400.
Okay, fine. And finally, sir, a small update. We made some reserves with respect to business discontinuity claims, which could likely hit in European market because that case was pending, I believe, in UK. So just wondering, are we done with it or still it is pending?
COVID UK, is it developed or it is developing?
No, it is developing yet. It is developing.
And we have reserves of around 100 million pound, if I'm not wrong, sir.
It's not pound, so it's dollar. So we have about 700, so that is basically we have about 760 crores. So that comes to about 100 million US
dollars. Okay, sir. Perfect. That's it from my side. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference back to the management for closing comments.
So thank you everyone for the interest shown. As is fairly evident, we have worked hard and we are making incremental gains as well. So we are prepared for the future. We are working towards the plan, and the indications that we get from our figures is very heartening for us. We will continue on to chart this path, and we look forward to having more such interactions. Anything that you would want further from us, please feel absolutely free to write to us, to give us a call, to mail us. We'll be happy to respond and answer your queries. Thanks again for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of General Insurance Corporation of India, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining. You may now disconnect your lines.